Let's talk about Auth-Info Codes. As we mentioned previously, an Auth-Info Code is sometimes called an auth code or authorization code. Whatever name is used, this string of characters is like a password that is created and managed by each domain name's registrar of record at the respective registry. The auth code for each domain name should be unique. The purpose of the auth code is to allow gaining registrars to securely identify registered name holders during an inter-registrar transfer. Here's how it works. After a registered name holder initiates a transfer to a gaining registrar, the gaining registrar asks the registered name holder for the auth code. Because auth codes are used so infrequently, most registered name holders will need to request their auth codes from their registrar of record. Once the registered name holder has its auth code, it must provide the code to the gaining registrar. The gaining registrar will eventually provide this code to the registry while initiating the transfer, and the registry will confirm that it is correct. It's worth noting that the transfer policy allows a registered name holder to provide its auth codes to its gaining registrar any time before the registrar initiates the transfer at the registry. As such, different registrars might handle this part of the process a bit differently, depending on their internal operating procedures. For example, some registrars might ask for the auth code at the point of sale of the transfer, while other registrars might not ask for an auth code until after sending the FOA, or at another time. Since the auth code is technically required to process the transfer, the timing for obtaining the auth code is not particularly relevant under the transfer policy. Continuing with the topic of auth codes, the transfer policy identifies some specific requirements that apply to all registrars to ensure that auth codes are reasonably available to registered name holders. If this sounds familiar, that's because the rule for unlocking is very similar. First, all registrars must either provide facilities for registered name holders to generate and manage their own auth codes, or provide registered name holders with auth codes within 5 calendar days of an initial request. Also, as with the unlocking of domains, registrars may not employ any mechanism for complying with a registered name holder's request to obtain an auth code that is more restrictive than the mechanisms used for changing any aspect of the registered name holder's contact or name server information. In other words, registrars cannot make it any harder for a registered name holder to unlock a name or get the Auth-Info code than it is for the registered name holder to change its contact data or update name servers. By way of example, if your registrar provides its customers with a web-based control panel to update name servers or Whois data, it should make auth codes similarly available. Likewise, your registrar may not allow name server updates by email while requiring that unlocking or auth code requests be submitted only by courier. Finally, registrars may not refuse to remove a lock or release an auth code to the registrant solely because there is a dispute between the registrant and the registrar over payment. We'll talk about how payment disputes might affect a transfer request in other ways in a later topic.